Welcome to Season 2 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Queen. I use she, her pronouns, and before we go any further than that, let me warn you, this show contains major spoilers for everything in Malevolent as of the date this episode is published. We're going to dissect the patron votes that drive the story week to week, so grab your scalpel and let's begin the autopsy. I'm here tonight with the fantastic Rosesofenvy as a special co-host. Welcome, Rose. Would you like to let us know your pronouns and what part of Arthur's body you control this evening?
Hello, hello. I go by she, her, and tonight I am controlling Arthur's right hand, which controls the bow for string instruments and typically the melody for keyboard instruments.
Thank you. Oh, that's so much fun. So Arthur has no hands now. If John has his left, Rose has his right, and Arthur has no hands.
That's okay. He'll be okay.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. And you could, I bet you probably play piano better than Arthur. I'm going to just say that.
Oh no. I don't think I can claim that.
Okay.
I'm a violinist at heart.
Oh, that's fair. You probably play violin better than Arthur then.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Okay. So would you like to give us our chapter summary, Rose?
Absolutely. So we are on chapter 256. John and Arthur wake to a soft soundtrack, birds chirping, and the soothing sound of water. Although John insists on checking for the Blackstone, Arthur decides to check on Antoine. Arthur catches Antoine in a lie, his disguise falling away and revealing Lilith, bringing us into Nightmare Central. They end up in the witch's hovel, John looking through Arthur's eyes and drawing attention to the starlight, which brings them away from disembowelment to electric boogaloo. They sit up in a roughly hewn train car moving through Goatswood. A letter is in Arthur's hands, a letter from Oscar. We get a vignette of Oscar jabbing at Arthur, causing those he's become close with to lose everything. Oscar's purpose, Antoine's life, Everard's castle, Noel's job, and everything that could have come after. The train catches fire. William's train burned out of jealousy before they have a long, long fall as they're dumped back into the Gug pit from part 17. Lilith tries to goad them into opening the chest, knowing it won't work as she then states she was buying time for Antoine. We're back in the rain, by the fire, no stars to be seen, Antoine gone, and John asking if they're actually awake. Arthur runs to the carriage, finding Antoine, who was Lilith in disguise again. However, the stone is not in the chest, something that Lilith is irritated with as she tosses Arthur to the back of the carriage, turning into an owl and flying off presumably to Castle Carringford. We end this chapter with the question of whether or not to take the piece of Lilith that fell off or leave it behind.
That was wonderful. I don't know how it's possible to condense a 20-minute chapter into a very short summary, but you did really, really well. Thank you, Rose.
It was a challenge. I was also trying to not read too quickly, so I'm sorry. If I ever talk too quick, just yell for me to put on the brakes.
No, you're fine. I mean, I think you're fine. But then again, I have ADHD, so everybody talking really fast is always a good thing for me. But I will let you know if you become hard for me to understand. I will let you know.
I appreciate that. Please do.
You know what? The funny thing is, when I'm talking to you live, I don't notice you speak quickly at all. But whenever I hear you on a recording where you've written something out already, or when you're excited, which everyone speeds up talking when they're excited, I can tell you go much quicker.
Yes. I am not going to rap, Autumn. I do appreciate your suggestion, but I stumble over my words more than I don't. I practiced this summary 3 times, and I still made a couple mistakes.
You did great. I didn't notice any. First question of the episode. Did you get tricked at any point in this chapter?
So I went into it with the most suspicion. I didn't believe anything was real. John wasn't real. Arthur wasn't real. So I was tricked, but I knew I was going to be tricked. I fully expected it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I am, ask anybody, I'm not good at predicting twists and hooks. I can count on one hand the number of times I've accurately predicted the outcome of a movie or a story. I fall for everything. I'm very gullible. That the pro of that is that I have a lot more fun. I get to be surprised more often. But I straight up was gasping every couple of minutes in this chapter because Like, I fully thought they were awake when the chapter opened. Like, I absolutely thought that they weren't going to have a nightmare, or like something was going to be drastically different and they would have to fall asleep again. So I was making up all kinds of excuses for why it wasn't a nightmare. And then nobody else was surprised that it totally was.
I agree with Seer. I thought everything was a lie and I still got tricked. I think like the last one got me because I was feeling that panic along with them.
Oh, yeah.
But like from the beginning, I heard the birds chirping and I said, this isn't real. I knew from the beginning.
It's the birds. They gave it away.
It was too happy. It was too positive. I said, there's no way we ended the episode as we did, and it's happy. Too good to be true.
Yeah, you were mentioning in your notes that I was reading over the soundtrack, the birds chirping and the sound of water.
Yes. I can start going into that if you want me to, or we can talk about the chapter more.
No, I mean, I would love to hear it throughout. I think it's part of your passion, and it belongs all over.
Amazing. So the opening of the episode, or this chapter, it was a completely new theme, and a lot of us caught on to it like immediately. If you were watching in the live chat, a lot of us were like, ooh, piano, this is interesting, this is new. So I was able to pick out the beginning portion. I did have to listen through a lot of dialogue, but I believe it's in D major, which is a happy key. Oh, how exciting. And a lot of the time it resolves to either the fifth of the key, so it resolves to an A. There's a moment where it resolves to an E, which that just leads us into resolving back to D major. In the very beginning, because they were waking up and we hear this piano solo just kind of starting, it reminded me a lot of Morning Mood from Grieg's Peer Gynt Suite, which, if you've heard it before, it opens with this flute solo. And I linked the video in my notes, Queen. I don't know if like it would make sense to listen to a little bit of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab the link. Is there a particular place you want me to go to?
Oh no, just right at the beginning. It starts right at 00.
Okay. Ah.
Yes.
I know this one.
A lot of people I think do, but you don't know the name of it. So, Morning Mood from Grieg's Peer Gynt Suite. This is the first movement of the suite. And it's depicting a calm dawn. So I'll go quiet for a moment more. Alright, and that's a good phrase. Oh, gorgeous. What a beautiful piece. Grieg writes beautiful, beautiful pieces. But most people actually know Peer Gynt Suite from the more popular In the Hall of the Mountain King, which is the fourth movement of this suite. The suite was incidental music to a play by Henrik Ibsen. It was first performed in 1876. But this opening, right, it gives the implication that everything's all right, peaceful. They rested, they've woken up, everything's fine. People in the chat are mentioning like hearing this soundtrack like to cartoons where characters are waking up, which is just so accurate. That's what the beginning piano reminded me of.
Yeah, I totally associate this with something usually in cartoons that is played for comedic effect because something is like way too good to be true. You're about to have everything shattered. So it totally fits the vibe for this chapter.
Yeah, this hope and dream is quickly dashed by the two of them remembering what happened just before falling asleep, which brings in this new piano theme. So technically this beginning part, Harlan did not like record, but I noticed it and I thought it was a cool intro to the theme, and I transcribed all of this by ear.
I'm going to play it for chat. I don't know if we'll actually put it in the episode, but I'll play it now. Appropriately creepy as fuck.
Yes, indeed. Very, very eerie. So I sent the music in the Patreon chat, and whenever this episode's publicly released, I will put my actual, like, analysis of the piano theme, probably on Tumblr, because that's where I post more of my long-form typing things.
What's your Tumblr, Rose, for those of us who would love to know?
Oh, it's so easy. Rosesofenvy.
Okay.
Most of my things are exactly the same,
Okay.
unless it's been taken already, and then it's Rosesofenvy. So if you can't find me at Roses, it's Rose.
Great.
So this theme, this piano theme, whenever you're listening to it, opens with very close together notes, chords, I should say. So when we're talking about notes in music, you can assign them numbers. So this would be a D6, E6 chord. The number refers to the frequency, pitch, or octave of the note. The bigger the number, the higher the octave. So a piano typically has 88 keys if you're talking about a standard instrument. It starts at A0, B0, then it starts at C1. So most of the octaves start on C, just because that's how music theory works. And of course these things are theory and not everyone uses the same thing, but that's how it is at the moment. So a standard piano will range from a C1 to a C8, so it has 7 full octaves with a few notes outside of these octave ranges. And the reason it stops there is because it goes out of the range of human hearing at a certain point. So especially for the lower frequencies, you get to a point where it's so low you can't hear it, and then, you know, like a dog whistle, we can't hear dog whistles because they're so high-pitched. It's the same thing.
Right, yeah.
The upper notes can only go so high.
Yeah.
So theory things, and I might get a little bit in the weeds here, so I'll try not to do that, but these two notes, D6, E6, and if you're looking at the sheet music, looking at sheet music could be a little bit scary if you haven't read music before, but
it is terrifying to me. It looks like a jumble of wingdings to me. So tell me what I'm looking at.
It's an entirely new language. So the theme that we're looking at right now is where it says, with slow building dread, and quarter note equals 52. So that refers to the tempo. The letters underneath MP stands for the dynamic, stands for mezzo piano, which we were actually having a little bit of discussion whether it's mezzo or mezzo, because it's Italian words and everyone kind of pronounces it differently.
Yeah.
But mezzo piano means medium soft, because mezzo is medium, piano is softly.
Oh, okay.
So the notes themselves, each note is assigned a letter name. This is probably not the best note to start with, but the first note is a D, and it is above the staff in treble clef, because each clef has its own range of notes. You know it's a D because the top line of treble clef is F, and if you count up from there, the next space would be G, next would be A, because our musical alphabet goes from A to G and then it repeats back to A. So the next one would be B, C, D. And ledger lines can get a little confusing. They're really difficult for beginners to start with, because you think in the staff is easy, but you only have so many notes and you got to go above and below.
Right.
So this is a high-pitched note because it's above the staff. And then we have another note because it's a chord right next to it. And it's one note up, so it's an E. So we've got a D natural and an E natural stacked on top of each other.
Wow.
So the nature, of a piano is that it's a chordophone, which means that there is a mechanism that hits something to make a sound. So it's got felt hammers hitting strings. If it's a synthesized instrument, then it is an electrophone. So a lot of people, if you own an electric piano, it's actually an electrophone, not a chordophone. Upright pianos, grand pianos, those are chordophones. So we can literally feel the tension of the notes physically when it is an actual piano, because inside a piano there are strings and they are stretched as long as short as they need. So the shorter the string, the higher pitched the note. When the felt hammer hits the string to create sound, the short note vibrates quickly without a lot of place to go. So playing these two high-pitched notes together, you can literally feel the tension.
Oh, that explains why it feels like I remember when I hear live instruments, which is unfortunately not as often as I wish it was, but when I do hear live instruments, it feels very resonant in my physical body. And I guess that explains why when you hear like an upright piano and you're very close to it, it can feel stronger than if you were kind of further back, right?
Yes, physical vibrations. Because noise is vibrations, music is science. I don't know a lot of the science side of things. I did not go that in depth with it, but I do have basic knowledge of how the vibrations relate to music, just because that was my focus and my concentration. So the other aspect of building tension here, because first we have the physicality of it, the literal short piano strings, is the distance between the notes, which in music is called an interval. There is 12 possible intervals ranging from a unison note, which would be 1-1, up to an octave, which is 1-8. I've talked about intervals previously whenever I did the How Far We've Come soundtrack in my last autopsy.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
But the one specifically I mentioned was the tritone, which is either an augmented fourth or diminished fifth, depending on the chord structure of the piece. The tritone is viewed as one of the most unstable intervals, but there are also other intervals that are not viewed as stable.
Okay, so what do you, when you say stable and unstable, what does that mean?
If you hear one chord, which I do have a little example pulled up. So I've written out each of the intervals in order, and then I've also written them out as chords. So this is middle C, which you've heard talked about before in Malevolent. Middle C is literally in the center of the piano. So in treble clef, this is where it's placed. It is below the staff. And then I have each interval written out in order ascending. I'm going to start with the chords first, actually, because then you can actually hear. So unison is the same note, which is impossible to play on a piano, actually. On a violin, you can do a unison note, but piano, there's only one key. With violin, I could play an open D. Well, an open D and a fourth finger D would be the easiest unison note to play. So, like, you can play the same note at the same time, which sounds more confusing than it is. And then it goes minor second, minor third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, and then an octave. Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
So unison, octave are the most stable because they're the same notes. The other two that are fairly stable would be the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth. Those sound really good.
Yeah.
The ones in between can get a little bit crunchy, a little more unstable. Part of that is the closeness of the notes. So the closer you are together and the further you are apart, it just doesn't resonate as well. And there's a lot of science and frequency that goes into it, which I'm not going to go into, but there are actual, like, super detailed explanations. But just listening to them, you can kind of tell the difference. So what we're working with in this excerpt is a major second, which is that note, and I've actually written them out here. You can hear the tension there just because it's high-pitched and because of the frequency that it is. Typically, when you hear the word major, you think happy, just like when you hear the word minor, you think that it's more of a sad sound. So with a major second, why doesn't it sound happy? Mostly because of how close it is, and then because of the upper octave, but also how we're progressing through the notes. So we start with this major second, and then we go to a minor third. We start with a major second, then minor third, major third. And it's like, oh, it's just progressing. Why doesn't it sound happy? Part of it is it's building tension. So we have an expectation as both listeners and musicians. We expect where the music is going to go. So we're thinking, oh, we know how this sounds, we know what it's going to next, and we know where it's supposed to end up, because that just makes sense. But there's something that's different in this chord progression, and it's the last interval. So when you're looking at this progression, which I'm going to play it here in a second, it's the same one that is in So the thing that we don't expect is for the notes to descend. We don't expect them to go down, because instead of going up, it goes down. So if it had gone up, it would sound like this instead. And
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy how different that is.
it
Like
doesn't sound
to my
anything.
brain.
Yeah, it doesn't sound anything like the actual theme. What do you feel the second thing sounds like compared to the first one?
Oh man. Okay, can you play it one more time?
Yes. So this is the original. Where the difference is, to make it a major third, it goes down to, this is transcribed as an F flat, but goodness, E sharp in harmonics. And then the second one misspoke. Hold on, I gotta correct that. I said F flat. It's because the flat is in a weird spot. It's D flat, so it'd be C sharp. My bad. Anyway, the second one.
Rose, how could you?
I know.
I totally noticed and knew exactly what you were talking about.
I'm the worst.
You know what? The way the second one feels different to me, it's more suspenseful than unnerving.
Yes.
And there's a distinction in there.
Yes. So typically whenever it's a descending line, you know that you're going to land somewhere eventually. When it's ascending, you expect to... It feels more positive to me overall, in general. There's more tension when it goes down, I feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think that, your brain knows logically it can't get that much higher before I won't be able to hear it. And so it can't be that way forever. But when it starts to go lower and then higher, I don't know what to expect. And so I'm waiting for the drop, kind of.
Yes, I feel the exact same way. I'm reading chat for a second because I realize I've been ignoring it. But yes, dissonance in music always carries an eerie vibe. I agree, Seer.
Yeah, I liked Volcontrol's mention of when the notes go where your brain doesn't expect. It's unnerving. It's exactly what I said.
Yes, I also love Graham's. I thought this was a pop quiz for a moment, and I thought Roses was asking us. And I like Key Raven's. The second one feels more intense somehow, like something's about to happen rather than lurking in the dark. Like, the first one does feel like there is something lurking. There is something dreadful about to happen. And then the second one, it does feel like something's about to happen, but not as ominous as the first one. So that's the first little section. And this section of 8 notes repeats 3 times. 3 is a number that exists in music. You have a 3/4 time signature, triplets, dotted values. But when it comes to repetition, 3 is quite literally an odd number. Musicians like the number 4. It's one of the first rhythm patterns you learn. It's one of the first time signatures. It's literally called common time. 4/4 is common time. So for this pattern to repeat only 3 times, there is once again a tension being built. And then it just disappears because it was only 3 times and you were expecting one more time and then it's not there.
Yeah.
So we have these 3 repetitions, and then what happens? An octave change. We love a good octave change. We do the exact same thing, but 2 octaves lower. So we are now in the middle C range, playing a D4, E4 to start. Bringing back the chordophone discussion, the lower the note, the longer and thicker the string the hammer has to hit. Lower octaves naturally have more resonance because the string has more space to vibrate. Despite it being the exact same notes, the octave difference makes this portion sound more stable. It's no less ominous because it's the exact same intervals, it's the exact same notes, it's just 2 octaves lower, but it is more stable sounding because of the vibrations.
I love that. I think the choice to, Graham and Vol were both saying, it reminded me, first of all, waltzes in 4s. I took a single session of classical dancing at my local community center, and I learned just some basic steps of a bunch of different classical dances, and having it be in that, I think that it's 3/4 time.
Yes.
Was so 3/4, yeah. It's that I don't know, it hits a good spot in my brain, and it also reminded me of when you're watching a logo bounce around a screen. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Probably just because it's got 4 sides.
And
but
it hits perfectly in the corner.
Yes. The other thing is that Volcontrol said, ooh, that's an interesting note about it being a repetition, 3 instead of 4. I didn't think about that adding to the tension. And I was going to say the same thing. So thank you, Vol.
It's one of my jobs. It's finding why things make you feel the way they do when listening to them. So whenever I was transcribing it, I forgot that he had actually sent the file in the eel pit. So I was listening through the episode trying to transcribe the notes. And I kept going back because I was like, wait, did it do it 3 times or did it 4 times? I literally just kept going back and re-listening. And that, of course, was building tension on its own. And then I was like, wait a second. He sent it in the eel pit. I could just listen to it that way. But yeah, I kept expecting it to do it one more time and it didn't.
Yeah, and I want to point out to the public that if when a chapter drops live, if we ask really, really nice and we notice that there's new music, Harlan will either drop the track in a file or he'll give us a snippet of it or something. But this specific time, you know, I'm sure Rose is going to briefly mention it too later on. We mentioned new music, and he was very kind and gave us that file that we were just listening to. And then he was like, the real piece is actually much longer.
9 minutes. 9 minutes of glorious orchestral music.
9 minutes of music. And it is only available for the highest Patreon tier currently available. So I upgraded, and Rose upgraded just to go and hear the new music.
And
because it was really, really lovely.
Oh, the moment I can publicly praise this piece, it will take me such a long time to transcribe, but I've been dreaming of it. It's amazing to listen to. I am so excited for when it's finally used in a chapter. I'm shaking at the thought.
Yeah, we will have to have another spot with you on it, and we'll just do like a whole musical episode.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Continue.
Oh, no, you're fine. I think that we're basically to the end of that piece, because it is short. That's the other thing. You're like, wow, all this tension has been built. We've listened to this. It is only 28 measures, I believe, which is quite short for a piece of music. I was talking about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony the other day, and that piece of music has over 2,500 measures, I think. Oh, it's 28, 29, 30, 31. There's 31 measures in the piano theme, but
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty short compared to a full orchestral work. I cannot wait to see how long the 9-minute piece is.
Yes.
One of the first things I do when I transcribe is I try to figure out time signatures so I can figure out how many measures there are. So once I can get started on that, hopefully soon. Hopefully I have more free time soon.
So the 9-minute song is called The Wager, and he mentioned that it is going to be the name of this part. So I'm very, very excited.
Because when you listen to it. Oh, when you listen to it.
By the way, this is probably the finale of the season. At least this is the final part of the season. I think technically the finales are counted as the interludes, coda and intermezzo. I think those were technically the season finales because they're stored under that season's artwork. But this is the final part of season 5. Okay.
Yes.
Autumn says, what do you think this season's interlude will be called? Queen and Rose. Well, I don't know shit about music. So all of the in-betweens that are not labeled as a part, they've all been named after musical theming. And I don't know, because I haven't even so much as Googled what that kind of thing would be. But Rose, do you have any guesses?
So I'm seeing a couple of suggestions in chat. Someone suggests fin, which in music that'd be fine. There's forte, someone said. So I don't think it's going to be anything dynamically, because all the words so far have been some sort of movement. So things like forte, piano, diminuendo. Oh, that would be a fun title though. Diminuendo, crescendo. There are so many words. So we've got prelude, coda, and intermezzo so far. Prelude is the beginning to, so coda was the one for season 3. I don't think it would be DSL coda because, it could be. I don't know if it would want to be something so similar.
Before we go into it, let me ask, very briefly, what are these prelude, coda, and intermezzo? What are those?
So all of them are words for some sort of movement in music. A coda can be complicated. The simplest explanation is that it is a bit of music at the end that the composer wants you to go back to. Most commonly, it's joined with some sort of symbol. So Maya suggested DS al coda. DS stands for da segno, which means the sign or the symbol in Italian. So if you are in a piece of music and you are playing through it, you would reach a symbol that would say DS al coda. So you would go back to DS, which is the symbol, which would be somewhere at the beginning of the piece. So say it's at measure 4. You would go back to measure 4 of the piece, play through all the way until you see the coda symbol, and then you go to the end of the piece, which is where the coda is. And it is some sort of just additional piece of music, usually going back to the main theme of the piece. They can be very, very complicated. They could also be simple. Most of the time, they're not simple.
That's really cool. And also, I think it is hilarious because I had never heard the word coda before Malevolent. And so now every time anybody says coda, I'm like, oh, is that a Malevolent? Nope, that's a real word.
Nope, that is a
that
real
other
word
people are
used in
going to
music.
use.
The other one that's common is DC al coda, which Kane has referenced. Da capo, I always think of as da head, because whenever I'm teaching these, I try to make them, relate as easy as possible in English. So the head of the music, you are going back to the beginning, finding that coda sign, and then going to the coda. So diazo coda would be interesting, but I feel like it would be too similar to coda. I don't know if he would use that. Prelude is the beginning of something, so it is a beginning movement, some sort of introduction. And then intermezzo literally means a middle movement. Mezzo is middle. Whenever you see that word, assume it means middle. So it's just something happening in between. Interlude, I think, is also very similar to intermezzo, so I don't think that would also happen. Oh, yes, Bird put the symbols for reference. So the da segno looks like a S with a slash through it and 2 dots, and then a coda looks like a 0 with a plus sign in the middle.
They look like lovely little queer alphabets.
Yes, they're great fun. I love the musical symbols. Graham says usually it's like a repeating chorus in my experience. So codas probably appear very differently in choral music compared to orchestral music. It just depends. But yes, that's why Kay made the DCL coda joke. Indeed.
I love that. Thank you, Rose. That was so cool. What do you think it might possibly maybe be then?
There are so many possibilities. I do like the thought of fine, like finish. So DC al fine would be go to the beginning of the music and play till the end or until the fine sign. So that could be possible. If you think of movements in a symphony, typically they are related with tempos, which is how fast or slow you're playing. So possibly if we think of symphonies, allegro, adagio, something along those lines. You could also think like courants, which are types of dances. If you think of Bach music, there are so many possibilities that, like, off the top of my head, I haven't thought about it. I haven't considered it. But thinking along the lines of prelude, intermezzo, and coda, I feel like maybe operatic is probably what I would need to look at, which that's something that I do not have as much experience with. Ooh, Mizra said elegy.
Hydra says reprise, since the colors are going to be flipped. I feel like reprise, because I do know what that means. For once, it does make me think of like a sequel, and that would be cool if there was a sequel to Malevolent. Now, I don't even want to start thinking about that because I don't feel like Harlan would do that. I don't want to get my hopes up is what I'm really trying to say.
Yes.
But I do think it's a good idea. I also think that for anyone who doesn't know, it is technically public knowledge. His hope for the artwork for the final season of Malevolent is to invert the colors. He did talk about that on a spooky stream. Now,
yes,
that could totally change between when he said that offhanded on a stream playing video games and when it actually comes out, but that's the idea.
He did do a mock-up of it, though, so I feel like it was pretty legit. Waterfall says, prelude begins a movement, coda brings a movement to an end, intermezzo connects movements, which, yes, so if we're going along those lines, thinking of how movements connect, like reprising is quite neat. I also just had the thought of cadenza, so in a piece of music, if, especially referring to concertos, which is where a soloist is playing a piece of music, a composer would write a cadenza, which it could be written out. So the composer says, this is exactly what you're going to play. Or it could be some sort of improvisation. So they can do whatever they want as long as they are staying mostly true to what the composer wants, but they can show off their skills. And I feel like that might be a good ending, because typically there's cadenzas at the end of a movement, and most commonly at the end of the first movement of concerto, but it could be at the last movement.
That is very cool.
So cadenza, that is a good possibility. I am also looking at a list of some operatic terms, because that's kind of what I relate preludes and intermezzos most to, so I'm just skimming those as well. But cadenzas.
I love that. I think those are a flower.
Quite possibly. I know credenza is like a type of table.
Yeah, a cadenza is a flower. I knew it. It's a really common, it's a red, primarily red, and it's really common when people want to get really pretty dried flowers specifically. Ooh. I really like flowers.
Oh yes, flowers are gorgeous. I wish I knew more about them.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
I have thought of overture, but I don't think that would be a good ending season. Like, overture is typically the introduction. It's the orchestra's time to show off before it's taken over by typically an operatic, or like if you've seen musical theater, there's the beginning overture that showcases each of the songs with orchestra only, and then you hear them again whenever the actual songs appear. So it's more of an introduction than an ending. But that's another one that might be nice. Recitative, which is a moment where whoever is I'm sorry, Seer of Time just said Kane Denza, and that is hilarious.
Was so good. That was so good. He would like that, Seer of Time.
That's wonderful. I love it, Seer of Time. You're wonderful. Ooh, Waterfall says cadenza is also performed by a soloist. This could get angsty potentially. Agree. That's why I also really like the thought of cadenza.
You know what? I'm going to start... I really think you're right. I think you're onto something. Ooh, this will be fun to listen back to. Okay, well, that was such a
great discussion.
Then let's talk some more about the chapter.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is the second time we've got the like inference that John might be having dreams or falling asleep. This is not something that he's ever done in the history of the show other than this season, actually.
Indeed, with Horig.
Yes, I found that really, really interesting. I also have noted down here that I think Lilith did a really good job acting as Antoine. That was such a spot-on impression of him. It was very good.
Fantastic job. I will say, with the opening scene, I was like, he's being a little pushier than usual. Like, we kind of saw his spine in the previous chapter when he was referring to Arthur's interest in the Blackstone, and he said, from you. That was, like, I feel like the first time we really saw his spine, but in this, I was like, he's being a little, like, why is he so eager to know if the Blackstone's still there? Like, I was very suspicious about that, but it still felt like him.
It did. And then when I get confused about what lies I'm telling, and how you could hear the smile and how evil it was so good.
Oh, and the voice shift as it goes from Antoine to Lilith. Oh, so good.
I could play that on loop. It was so good. Oh my gosh. And then speaking of like heartbreaking voices, John's voice when he realizes that they're on the slab was just heartbreaking.
And yes, you could hear him, like, his voice shaking a little bit.
Oh, baby.
Poor boy. And being on the slab again, maggots / derogatory.
Oh,
Graham put a really funny thing in the meme chat, which is a screenshot of him saying, OMG, are we getting maggots? I miss the maggots. And then me, immediately after, saying, not the maggots. Please, dear Lord, not the maggots. There are two people in this world.
Yeah. I also heard some very interesting quotes from Lilith. You can actually hear her say, poor little Artie, in that scene, and Artie was a nickname that Cain used with Arthur.
There's quite a few moments where she was sounding like Cain, like, not just like her phrasing, but sometimes her voice kind of warped a little bit to sound like his.
Yes, and I know that it's, haha joke, because it's all the same guy voicing the characters, but I think this was very intentional in the realm of, like, that's his daughter. They sure are closely related in the way that gods can ever be related, because it's not the same father-daughter relationship that, like, Pharaoh and Arthur would have had. I don't think it's that direct, but in the realm of gods, they're like, she is descended of him, kind of, and I loved those similarities between them, and the, like, playfulness that she gets when she's in her element was very good.
Yes, like, you could just hear her smile. She was enjoying herself. She was enjoying this torture, which, whenever it was part 31 with Scratch was enjoying it, and we could tell, but this is so much more visceral. Like, that she's just having a grand old time.
Yeah, Scratch almost felt like it was a beast playing with their food, but Lilith, it's like a genuine, sinister enjoyment of a very complicated situation, and it just felt so much more layered now that they're not two separate pieces, but kind of return to one again. Like when she says, you still think the stone is for me? First of all, who the fuck else would it be for? What are you talking about? That scared me. I don't know what she means by that.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop.
Yeah. And
who could it be?
the way that she drops from that high energy Cain type moment to these like slow drawn out realizations of, you still think the stone is for me. Like, I don't know. It was just really, really well played. And I think this episode gave Lilith so much more dimension than she's had before.
Yes, I loved like getting these little snippets into her character. That wasn't just what we had in the previous episode where we were just being tortured by her, essentially. Like, she was laughing at our pain, laughing at humans being, not great. And this, instead, we're seeing her get frustrated, like, a little bit.
Yeah, which was so interesting because we really haven't seen Lilith's range of emotion very much. When she's been talking to Arthur, she's actually been pretty composed, or like she has all the cards. But there were a couple of moments in this chapter where you could tell that she was surprised or frustrated or taken aback, and I really liked that.
I agree, especially with what happens at the end of the Hag's Hovel, which is where we get the starlight moment, which we ended part 51 with Arthur saying he'll be looking at the stars, so looping back to this feels important. But I did note specifically that we hear the How Far We've Come soundtrack as John says he can see the firelight and he can see the stars, which we know now, after listening further to the episode, that Mother Darkness hindered Lilith's ability and created some sort of connection. So John could see the stars, and then for a moment, Arthur could see the stars. Oh! They were looking at the stars together.
Okay. The other thing I had written down was when Arthur has his eyes, you can just picture it, his eyes are shut so tight, and he's just saying, I can't, over and over again, but he does it, and he goes through it, and the vocalization of I can't, while continuing to do it anyway and kind of like persevere is so relatable, because that is exactly what I do, especially when I'm going through physical pain that feels like so impossible to endure, and it feels really good just like I can't do this as you're doing it. And so I loved that very human moment, and the breakthrough of that moment of like him coming out on the other side of it and being able to disconnect from the pain that he's experiencing in the dream felt so triumphant to me. I loved it. And then to be rewarded with them looking at the stars was so good.
Yes, and everyone in chat is agreeing wholeheartedly. I think everyone was crying at this moment. Volcontrol says, then do it scared, which is one of my favorite thoughts. If I'm scared, then do it scared.
Yeah.
Autumn, I will do it, but I will also bitch about it every step of the way.
Yes, Autumn. Yes,
indeed,
absolutely.
Hydrus, I will complain the entire time, but I will get it done. Complaining is good for the soul sometimes. And
it is. Also,
like, him remembering all these horrible things as John is there too, and John pulls him out of it, not just with his voice, but like letting him see the stars again. Which I noted as this is the first thing Arthur has seen with his own eyes since season 1, because briefly he does say he can see the black goat in, I think it was part 2.
He also says that he thinks that he saw things in the waylay, but he can't remember.
Yes.
So that was also interesting.
The waylay.
The other detail that I really loved in this part was the wooden train and the echoes of Lilith's voice. Some people still haven't caught all of the details in this episode, so I just want to point out Lilith is in the background as this train is burning up, and she says, he had what you didn't. What a friend you are, which was thick as fuck.
Oh my gosh,
like, yes. Arthur being inside the wooden train that he threw into the fire of his best friend as a little boy. Like, that is such a good nightmare. That is something that people really would have.
The William callback. Like, and it took me way too long to like realize it was William's train. It was basically whenever it was burning, I said, "Oh!" I think people had caught that a lot sooner, but I was a little more focused on the letter, which happened.
Yeah. So we've reached the part of this episode where I have some things to say. First of all, I was right. We got Charlie. That is signal number fucking 1 that he will be back, damn it. I cannot, first of all, I got so many pings when this chapter dropped and DMs of people going, Queen, did you listen to the chapter? How are you feeling? Charlie's voice was back. And I can't tell you, it took me everything not to just like viciously replay minute 10, second 31 to minute 10, second 36, I think it was.
Yes.
Because his voice is alone for just the words, my job, and everything that could have come after. And I just want to talk about for a second how that totally symbolizes, I mean, I know it's such a short amount of words to give a character, but like everything everybody in that letter said was indicative of their character, what was important to them, what they symbolized. And for Charlie, the stable life and brand new start that he like came back from the Dreamlands and he recovered, and he was trying to like, you know, he was waiting for the sign that Lorik said that he was going to get, but he's basically been able to get a fresh start and put all of that shit behind him until Arthur shows up. And so for him to be like, my job, and for Arthur to be thinking like, I fucked that up for Charlie, and the fact that he has no future and how it's changed after Arthur has come into his life and what Arthur thinks he might have screwed up for Charlie. And the fact that like Charlie is there alone for more than one line was so important to me, because he could have just left it as my job, and they didn't. They give him and everything that could have come after, and you know what's gonna come after this is Charlie coming back. That is what I wanted to say. The other thing is that this segment of the letter, when everybody kind of joins in on Charlie's lines and says, you have ruined our lives, everything you touch rots, that made me think really specifically of several times in Malevolent, specifically in season 2, that we have been told that Arthur is effectively just ruining everybody's lives, and that everybody he knows and loves dies or is worse off for knowing him. In part 18, he has Daniel saying, guilt is a companion of death, Arthur. I see it with you now. Do not let it rival you, which was a more hopeful turn on like how all of these things are following him because he's letting it follow him, right? Because it was Daniel in his mind. So it was very like representative of what he thinks of Daniel. And then you have in part 20, the two very significant times where Cain is talking and the king are talking. And Cain says, you know, talking about what's so special about you. And then he says, I watched your parents kill themselves. I watched your wife die, your child drown. Boy, you had a lot of death around you. And then we have the king saying, death surrounds you, Arthur. It stalks you like a black shadow that takes everything you touch away. You're cursed. You're damaged. A boy playing with matches, burning that train, that kills everyone sleeping in the house while you escape unscathed. And in that scene, I also found it so fascinating to reflect on Arthur saying, unscathed, I am paying for my mistakes. This, my hand, my eyes, look at me. I'm weak and starved and I have nothing. And the king like agrees with him. And Arthur just gets more and more desperate. I have nothing left for me, not a soul to count on. And the king thinks he's about to win. And then Arthur says, accept him. And I just got goosebumps because I'm remembering the scene. And Rose, it's so funny in the transcript. They say the music returns accompanied by majestic strings, and the king starts like getting so angry, and he says, "Fool! He doesn't care about you, Arthur. You're a sack of meat, a ride, a piece of driftwood to hold on to. Otherwise, he'll drown. You are nothing to him." And then Arthur says, maybe, but he's no longer nothing to me, and I need to trust in something. You are choosing to let a monster live. I'm choosing to believe that we can change. And that whole section, and looping right around back to the way that it is still in Arthur's head in this nightmare, that he has truly ruined people's lives and destroyed their futures and left them worse. But in the sharp contrast to everything else, and in huge opposition, and just to show again how far Arthur's come, he actively breaks out of that letter recitation because it could have gone on and on and on, but he goes, I'm not fucking doing this. Like, I'm not carrying it on any further. This is where it ends. And I loved that for him. That moment was so triumphant. I also just realized I've been talking a really long time without hearing from you, Rose. I'm so sorry, but I got really excited about Charlie.
I knew, and I have been rambling about music for God knows how long, so by all means, take the reins. I've been keeping an eye on chat, and everyone fully supports the message. Pestilence reference by Bird to Arthur's actions, like a boy playing with matches. Someone referenced, hold on, sorry, I'm scrolling, the Kellen comment about burning Bella and drowning Faro, and I've missed it somehow, some way. I've scrolled past it, sorry. Autumn said, like a kid with matches. Who said the Kellen comment? Oh, Graham. Sorry. I scrolled too far. But there's so many things, so many, like, connecting dots that you don't realize until you go back, especially to, like, the transcripts and read through. But I found it so interesting as we were, like, listening to these voices, how it didn't seem to, like, really affect Arthur as much as, like, the things in the first nightmare did. And I'm thinking it's because he's already experienced this before and it's not as affecting. But starting with Oscar, so, like, I noted the 4 voices that we heard. We had Oscar saying, Arthur, I thought you were my purpose, how wrong I was. I put everything I had into trusting you. I lost everything. We all lost everything. Antoine says, my life. Everard says, my castle. And then, of course, our lovely Detective Noel. I found it interesting that those were the characters that were in this letter.
Yeah.
Antoine, we've been traveling with. It was interesting to me. And I don't know. Autumn says we could have had Parker. And you know what? I did have that on my bingo card. I was hoping for a Parker mention, but alas. But Everard's castle, is he referring to losing his dark young? Or...
So my opinion of this was that Harlan could not possibly have every character that's been deeply affected by Arthur in this letter,
no,
right?
Of course not.
So he had to pick specific characters, and most of them are recent enough that we would have remembered easily and quickly who they were to get the point of what this is going to be about. And then he had to pick a specific thing or item or, like, point in their lives, like a thing that Arthur deeply affected or touched. And I actually think that Everard said my castle because Everard, I think he has a very, like, deep and specific attachment to what that castle is and represents for him.
Yeah.
And it is his it's like his home base. It's his safe haven. It's the place where he is able to carry out, like, the mission that he's on to deal with the, cultists that he's very passionate about. So I think it was a little bit more symbolic for Everard. I do think that it was interesting. Somebody rudely pointed out that we have known the horses longer than we have known Charlie. And I think that it's very interesting that we didn't hear from, like, Marie or anybody that Arthur, or, like, there's just so many possibilities. And that Harlan specifically chose these characters I thought was very cool. I also think that there was so much more this letter could have contained that would have been heartbreaking.
Put us in the ground. Like, I was fully braced when I heard the word letter. I said, okay, we're going to hear from Oscar. And I was like, oh no, who else are we going to hear from? I will admit, I did scream, like, actually screamed when I heard Noel's voice. It was a little embarrassing. But I full on went, Detective, no! And it sounded more like no than Noel, but
Detective, no!
My heart. My heart. Oh, there's so much to this. And then, the train car burns, which a couple people were drawing some connections from, like, fire. We haven't had a whole lot of talk of fire. There's a whole bunch of, like, water things happening, but, like, the burning train car was interesting. And then we have a long, long fall into the Gug pit, which, if you looked at the transcripts, a long, long fall appears a couple of times when we have a long, long fall. And I thought it was really interesting that we ended up here in a season 2 scene, since the previous ones were all season 4, season 5 scenes. More season 5, honestly, than anything else.
Yeah, and I also, like, it occurred, first of all, it was a very funny moment for the chat when the chapter dropped live, because everybody live blogs their first listen to it, and when everybody got to the hole and the falling, they were like, hole mention. And it's genuinely so funny to watch a whole chat just like light up with the single thing that has the least interesting thing that has happened this chapter, but it spammed the chat for a good like 20 seconds because people are all listening at different moments and they're like a few seconds ahead or behind, and no one can see what the other person's typing because they're all using spoiler bars in that channel, and unless you have them turned off like I do, which means I just saw just a ton of the exact same thing, and emojis and Arthur falling into a hole emoji.
Which I think it's because we had like an 11-part streak of no falling, no holes, so it did break the streak.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that was one. But I really enjoyed those few episodes in season. I love season 2. I love all the seasons. But anything with falls, if you guys don't know, I make fall compilations. So I have watched the falling scenes many, many times because I caption them. And I thought that going back to this scene was very interesting because there's a lot of things that happen in those couple of episodes. So in the Gug Pit, they read the bestiary, which that's just something I find interesting. But Arthur talks to John about Faro for like the first time in this part. And then it's also...
Yeah, that was a really significant moment.
Their first big moment of cooperating to kill a creature that is larger than them. I thought that was interesting that was the scene she took them back to. It was also a very gruesome scene because we know the like piles of viscera in that pit.
And I think this was the one where, isn't this the same part where Arthur invents the Molotov?
Yes.
Okay. I love that. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on before we start trying to get into kind of the vote, spoiler warning, the vote's not super interesting, at least from the debate side, because there really isn't much of one. But something I wanted to touch on was the fact that Harlan pulled a double reach around here.
Oh my gosh.
And
yes.
Lilith was like, oh, I can't do the same thing twice. That would be like that's not any fun anymore. And Harlan's like, well, yeah, I noticed that, so I had her say it because I can't really do the nightmare again because Arthur's not going to fall for it again. If the villain is doing the same thing over and over, you're going to call them out on it, and it doesn't hit the same way, which is why I think this nightmare was so much more visual and artistic and symbolic than the previous one, because the previous one was really, really good. It's one of my favorite Malevolent episodes ever, but it was not quite as visual, if that makes sense. And I do want to pause here to play a relevant voice submission that we got from a new friend. So let me do that right now.
Hello, I'm Nukuome, and my pronouns are he, it. I just wanted to talk about how visual the last 6 or so chapters have been, especially for a non-visual medium like Malevolent. I've talked to a friend who also listens to the show, and we agree that it's been astonishingly easy to visualize everything recently. Some recent personal standouts have been Lilith just walking through the mud and stamping out the fire, the entire section with the wheel and Antoine, and Arthur seeing for the first time since before the first episode. The difference in sound is night and day, not only just from seasons 1 to 5, but also just from part 48 to 50. Audio has always been a major source of inspiration and joy in my life, so this level of sound quality in a show that I love, it really gives me the strength to persist in life, despite the horrors. Anyways, I don't have a closing thought because I'm very bad at this type of thing, and I just wanted to talk about something that I really liked in Malevolent. I hope you all have a really great day and keep going strong. Bye-bye!
I loved that. Thank you so much for submitting, Nukuome. I think that this is what really planted in my head that it was such a visual chapter, because that's the best way to describe it, I think. And before we talk about that, I also want to talk about this note that Autumn left because it was also really good and it's kind of in the same vein.
Hi, it's Autumn, she, her. And boy, do I have some thoughts about this episode. They're a little fragmented, but it's a dream sequence after all. The sequence itself, the imagery in it was so good. I just couldn't choose which part to draw. I still need to draw some parts. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so one idea I thought was pretty interesting, even if it wasn't followed through with, was the possibility that Lilith was trying to break John instead. What with the return to the Witch's Lair, the place where he had to watch Arthur get stabbed a bunch of times, where he was trapped and he couldn't do anything. So maybe Lilith was trying to break John and not Arthur because she knew that trying to trick Arthur wouldn't work. But John might work with his new connection to humanity. He's become a bit softer in the seasons. I also really appreciate how smart Arthur was being here. I wasn't stuck screaming at my screen about like how dumb he was being and how obvious he was being tricked and stuff. And I was tricked at the same time as he was. Lilith played 4D chess with our minds, and it was insane. The Antoine play was amazing. I did not see that coming. I'm so glad our theorising was correct, though. Stone was never there. It really cast the last few episodes in a different light. Everyone knew they wouldn't be coming back except for Arthur, and they'd all just accepted their fate. One thing that's got me really thinking is just imagine Everard getting to know Arthur over the span of a week, becoming friends, but it's always like in the back of his mind, knowing that he has to send him on a journey he wouldn't come back from, and he couldn't even tell him about it because that would jeopardise the mission or something. It's just the angst potential, I can feel it. Anyway, that was just a little food for thought. Probably wrong over time, but thanks for listening anyways. Bye!
Thank you, Autumn. That was lovely. And I agree. There's just so much potential for everything after this chapter. I can't believe we have a whole another 4 chapters to go.
If each of them are 20 minutes, I don't know how I'm going to survive. My heart.
I doubt it. I think it was just the first one. The first ones are always longer. The first and last chapters are always longer.
Which is not complaining, but I would love... 20 minutes is a lot, but oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it, I was sitting down to listen, and I said, 19 minutes?
Yeah, I gotta make some time for this episode.
Totally fine.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Let's see. I'm going to, unless you have any other notes that you feel would be good to touch on, I'm going to move into vote chat.
I think just that final manipulation, being double-crossed by Antoine. The box was empty, which a lot of us were kind of banking on. We expected the box to be empty. So that was something. Arthur getting tossed like a baseball to the back of the carriage and him genuinely laughing. We love a good, genuine laugh from Arthur.
Add it to the laugh comp. Yeah, I loved him laughing hysterically as he got tossed around. I also love the times when John helpfully narrates what's happening to Arthur's body like he can't feel it, and then Arthur says, I can feel that. It was really
It's one of my favorite bits, one of my favorite Jarthur bits.
Yeah.
And as we were re-listening to this episode, this chapter before we started Autopsy, I realized, what if we didn't trust Antoine? So those couple votes back where it was, trust or don't trust, what if we hadn't trusted Antoine? How would that have changed this nightmare episode? Because it hinged on us caring for Antoine twice. Like in the beginning of the episode and at the end, we cared about Antoine's well-being, what he was doing. What if we didn't trust him? How would that have changed things?
I bet it would have changed things in the way that Lilith portrayed Antoine, and I think it would have been more of using Antoine as a boogeyman rather than using Antoine as a pain point.
I love theorizing. I love things.
Bram says Lilith losing a nail is interestingly similar to how in Call of Cthulhu 1, Anna loses a nail in the Dreamlands and the PCs have to find it and use it as one of the 3 keys to open a door. So that might also be a callback, a little Easter egg for some older Call of Cthulhu lore. So that was interesting.
That's very interesting. The last, I think, chapter technically related thing is the bingo cards. I don't know if anyone submitted theirs, but I know you have yours on hand. I know I did.
Yes. So we do have some bingo cards. My bingo card, let me explain briefly the tradition of Patreon bingo. So when I first entered the server, I was introduced to the idea of bingo cards. So it's been here for quite a while. People try to anticipate what's going to be happening in the next part, season, or chapter, depending on like the person and how they're playing this bingo. Usually people make season-long bingos so that it can be a stronger chance of happening, but it just depends. It really doesn't matter. But basically, people get bingo templates online or they make their own and they fill in the squares with their predictions of what's going to happen, and then you just kind of play bingo with yourself. There's not much of a real game to it. It's just really fun to share each other's bingos and talk about it. So I have some bingo cards. My bingo card, I was smart enough to just put Charlie in every square, so I won very quick and easy. Rose, can you share just a few squares off your bingo card?
So I did not get a bingo. I was one away. The one that almost got me a bingo was Witch and or Mother Darkness, How Far We've Come soundtrack, the center, which was just a hole, and Butcher Peggy Gordon, because we did have a Butcher mention.
Yes.
I did not get a bingo because I put piano playing / listening / composing, because I was really hoping for some sort of like performance scene, but Guilt trademarked. That one was hit big with that letter.
Always.
Someone gets stabbed. Disembowelment was happening. I did put Charlie Dowd, Detective Null with some hearts, because of course. I was hoping for Alia Saves the Day. I did have that down, did not happen. A genuinely joyful laugh. I was so excited for that. And a long, long fall were like my ones that I was really hoping for.
Yeah.
I would have also liked some new lore, maybe a Waylay. And of course, Parker. Oh, I wanted a Parker mention so bad.
We have some submissions here. Mizra submitted her bingo card, and I'm going to read off some of the ones she did not get crossed off. John cries, Aaliyah gives help, Arthur dies again, which was a really common square for a lot of bingo cards I saw. People, Mizra predicted maybe a Pharaoh mention, poetry, hugs. A lot of people were really hoping for hugs. Mizra also created kind of a quote-unquote, this is how she put it, coping edition of bingo. And some of those that she did actually get were the stargazing, John comforting Arthur, Oscar's letter, for real this time. Which, I mean, yeah, we did technically read Oscar's letter, even though it was Oscar's letter in Arthur's brain. And then ones that she didn't get on her coping were things like, Antoine is okay, the boys hug, hand holding, Arthur eats bread, John Wayne is okay, Yorick jaw clacks. So that was cute. We also had another submission from another person named Douglas. Irish accent. Arthur gets Arthur gets something new. I can't read this one. Daniel mention. The left arm problem. Canadian sorry. And in all caps, Jesus Christ Arthur, which I really like. Vol Control also has a bingo card here, and some of them were the massive injury meme, Everard in general. Dark World memories. Oh, I can't wait to see what happens with the Dark World.
Oh, I wanted that too. A Dark World mention. I was hoping for it. Because I was thinking, if John was also in the nightmare, then like maybe we would have some John nightmare moments and Dark World would come up, but alas, it did not. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No, you're good. A nice bowl of soup. Lighter reveal. Cain intervention. I saw that too. People hoping for Cain in this chapter was also a big one. Hydrus submitted their card as well. Bella has a square in this one. Pharaoh appearance again. People were really expecting some more bathtub stuff. Antoine itch reveal. We interrupt this regularly scheduled nightmare to bring you Cain. Daddy, third time's the charm. Waking up from a sleeping beauty coma, several years have passed. More previously undisclosed childhood trauma. And Hydrus is a big fan of a specific mythos god named, I hope to God I get this right, Yog-Sothoth? I've only heard Fish say it out loud, and it was quite a while ago. New deity intervenes, Yog, please be Yog. I love that. Thank you, everybody who submitted some bingo cards. Those were very fun. And I don't think I saw anybody actually get bingo, but we did get a poll. So the poll for this week was take the piece at 91% versus leave it be at 9%, with a total of 346 votes. And according to our Patreon vote counter extension, that means that take the piece has 314 votes and leave it be has 32 votes. So, as you can see, this is very one-sided, and actually we had a whole day of nobody saying anything in poll chat. I think we're going to go on pretty long without talking about this much more, because it's really hard to find good arguments for not taking the piece of Lilith, and I tried really hard to come up with them, but it was difficult. I wanted to mention a comment from Luna Maria in the slow poll chat on the Discord that said, I think we want Lilith's fingernail because when Mother Darkness shows up to kick our ass, if we have her fingernail, maybe A, Mother Darkness will be like, oh shit, are you buddies with Lilith now? Fuck, and go easy on us to avoid Lilith's wrath. B, Mother Darkness will take it as a peace offering, like, oh, she's falling apart, is she? You gave me useful info. Okay, good. I guess you can live. Or C, Mother Darkness can magic it like she did Arthur's hair to, like, temper Lilith's power. And D, unlikely, it will give John and Arthur some magic power to better survive Mother Darkness. Rose, how did you vote on this chapter?
I am definitely on the side of the magpies here, and I said, let's take that nail. Mostly because we've taken so many other things, and it's like basic video game survival 101. You take the thing when it gets dropped. Like, it doesn't matter if it's bad for you, doesn't matter if it's poison, doesn't matter if it'll kill you somehow, some way. You pick it up and you take it until you can find a use for it. So that poll dropped bright and early 7 a.m. I voted take and haven't thought about it since.
That's fair. I voted take. There was a lot of, just for the public's benefit, there was a lot of people who were saying that they were magpie-minded and they just wanted to collect things and they didn't see a downside to taking it, and why not? There was also some talk of, like, whether it was a fingernail or a hardware nail. It's definitely a fingernail. I mean, I didn't see Harlan say that, but why would Lilith be shedding nails?
Maybe it came off the carriage when she threw Arthur. Maybe it just got stuck to her somehow.
Fair.
It's probably her acrylics or, her press-ons. That's what we assumed.
One of the only things that I can really think of that I haven't posted in the chat yet about maybe why we shouldn't take it. So my argument, theoretical argument, had been like, well, I don't really see anything that compels me to pick up a piece of a god. We don't know that it's actually going to do anything, and Arthur's never used magic before. Why would he start now? I don't understand why he would contribute to a tracking spell or anything like that. I really think it's just going to be like equivalent to a piece of Lilith's DNA that can maybe be used to track or bind her by somebody who knows how to do that. We haven't heard from Yorick in a long time. He was the only one who kind of instructed us on how to build a magical artifact, so I don't even want to say Yorick is still with us. I hesitate to say anything about Yorick until I hear him again. If I hear him again. Nothing has been confirmed as far as what Yorick, like what's going on with that. The other thing that I was trying to say was kind of like, I don't really see the issue with somebody else coming and picking it up, because that was what people were saying about, like, well, we can't just leave it there. What if Mother Darkness gets it? Or what if somebody more powerful that can actually use it picks it up? But, like, I'm very one-track minded, and for me, I just don't have an issue with that. That's not my problem. That's not Arthur's problem right now. And consequences will quince when they will. But all of that being said, I still vote to take it. I mean, I can make good arguments for why we shouldn't, but then again, it's a story and a game, and I want to pick it up.
There will probably be consequences, but, like,
yeah,
everything has to me, like, we took the talisman, and the talisman, I think, was a way worse thing to take than this nail. I think, or if anything, they're about an even playing field, which I wasn't around for that vote, so I don't claim it, but, to me, I'm wondering, I'm curious what leaving it would do.
I also want to point out, Booth John says she is sure to return with or without the stone itself.
So it can't, if it was used for tracking, like, that's a null point.
Right. A null point.
No.
I miss him. He would know what to do.
He would. Do you think Null would take it?
Yeah, he would. He would take it because it's evidence. Like, that's what you do.
Exactly.
I also think that he would take it, but he'd be smart about it. So I hope that Arthur's smart about it. I don't know what that entails, but I guess I just don't want Arthur to be like, I'm gonna pick this up with my bare hand and lick it or something. Like I don't want him to do something that's gonna like immediately cause bad things to happen.
Like when he was taking the stone, quote unquote, from Antoine, I was like, oh God, is him touching the stone gonna do something? Even though now we know it's just like a normal stone. But I was like, is he just touching it with his bare hands? I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so the kind of the wrap up that I want to mention about this vote, it still really bothers me that Booth John says she is sure to return with or without the stone itself. Are we gonna just wait here for Lilith to come back? Is she
Man, I hope not.
Is she gonna be back in like 0.2 seconds, or is it gonna take a while and Arthur just sits like? I am so lost as to what the next chapter is gonna be about, which excites me, but also I don't know why picking up a piece that she dropped is relevant to her coming back or not. So that makes me want to try and put those two things together. Like, if she comes back and we don't pick it up, is she going to be like, so I see you did...
Oh, that's my nail.
Yeah, oops, my bad. Or if she comes back, if she could be like, I know that I dropped something. Can you please give me my fucking nail back? Like I don't know. Like, how are those two things connected? So I'm interested. I wonder if that's like gonna be a good thing that he has it on him when she returns, or a bad thing. And I don't know, there's something in my gut that says it's not that the vote doesn't matter, but that either way something's gonna go down.
Something's gonna happen. And I agree with Seer that Lilith is going to be gone for a bit, because some people, I don't know if you caught this, but it sounds like she turns into an owl and then screeches and flies off.
Yeah.
So if she's traveling by owl means, and we've been traveling for 2 weeks, now we did have some lame horses and some carriage troubles, so who knows how far we've gotten, but if she's flying all the way back to Castle Carringford, and then she would have to fly back to us, I mean, we have at least a couple days. But... yeah, I do agree that one way or the other something's going to happen, and who knows if it would be better or worse that we had just left it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the next chapter. I keep saying, like, I love the votes. I'm no less passionate about the votes, but I am now, like, the poll drops, and I'm now like, okay, cool, yeah, vote, talk about the vote. Can I get the next chapter now? Like, I want to know what's happening so much more than ever before. I'm so excited. I loved this. This was fantastic.
Yes, it was a stunning... Like, I usually re-listen a couple of times, and I feel like I've listened to this chapter at least a day, like, every single day this week, leading up into this. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Well, Rose, did you have any special thoughts or shout-outs or anything that you want to share before we sign off?
I will say, if you're, like, on the fence of upgrading to Goo, I would highly recommend it. It's the piece that Harlan composed is amazing. I was caught off guard yesterday during the spooky stream when he shouted me out, because I did do like a pretty big analysis on it, and it's a wonderful piece of music. It sounds absolutely amazing. Go listen to it if you can, and if you can't, you will hear it in the episode that it appears in, and it will be just as stunning. I cannot wait to hear it in context. And you'll be able to see my analysis and set point eventually, and hopefully I'll be able to get it transcribed eventually. But I have many music thoughts. Feel free to throw them at me anytime. I love answering music questions, even if I don't always know the answer or have a good, succinct answer.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, who's listening, Goo is Great Old Ones, and it is the $50 tier. It's the highest tier you can be on the Patreon right now. With the Goo membership, you also get the Shamer tier rewards, which is the $25 tier. Really cool and definitely worth an upgrade if you can swing it at this time. Also, go check out Rosesofenvy's Tumblr, because it's super cool and has so many good music words on it that I don't understand but really enjoy.
Yes, I have a specific tag that's like for the things I create. So if you also want to see my Falling compilations, which I am working on season 5, since soon we will have the full season. It's Envy Creates if you're looking, but it's in my pinned post. So I also have my entire analysis on How Far We've Come soundtrack, which I have talked about previously.
Yes.
I also, yes, Vol, I did do a Charlie only cut. So on my YouTube, I have a 41-minute video of only Charlie. So if you've ever wanted to just fall asleep to the dulcet tones of our beloved Detective Null, 41 minutes just for you on my YouTube, which is also Rosesofenvy. I feel like I'm doing an ad for myself. This
you
is so
are,
strange,
because
but,
it's good, and I want everybody to like be involved with you and the wonderful things you bring to the fandom. Rose, you genuinely are such a bright spot. You are so kind and so lovely and smart and wonderful, and everybody loves you, as they should.
I'm giggling and blushing my feet. Blushing my feet. I'm giggling, kicking my feet, and blushing. All of the above. Oh my god. I'm flustered. You flustered me, Queen.
Rose, do you remember our sign-off?
Is it but or and?
It's but.
Amazing. So I did remember it correctly.
You did. Yes, yay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate everybody. We did run quite long this evening, but we had such a good time, and it was a very long chapter, so I think it was absolutely warranted. Thank you again so much, Rose. I hope you have a great evening and the rest of your weekend goes well.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for having me on. I love talking about music, and I appreciate you listening to me ramble, all you guys listening to me to ramble for so long.
It was such a pleasure. So, with that being said, the horrors persist.
But so do we.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great night. Take care. Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. You can find everything official at linktree/Harlan Guthrie. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. And speaking of here, if you want to be part of the live vote chat I record each week, join the Invictus Patreon and connect your Discord account. We have our own private patrons-only autopsy channel. If you want to chat with me and maybe even some other folks you hear from on the show, you can also find a public autopsy channel from the Invictus Discord so you can hang out even if you're not a patron. While Malevolent Autopsy is my pride and joy, it wouldn't be ever improving without some key players. Thank you to Mizra, Nikki, and Vol Control for their work editing and assisting with production. They do so much for the show, and they do it all as volunteers, and I couldn't be more grateful. To submit a voice recording, have your message read aloud on the show, or find us on other platforms, visit linktree/Malevolent Autopsy. Let's hear from one more Malevolent fan before we finish this week.
Hiya, I'm Papers, or Paperflood. My pronouns are they, he. I wanted to share how Malevolent has impacted my life positively. It personally has been a reprieve for me after long days in university. It's been so great to have something to come back to every day, whether it's listening to a new chapter each Monday after classes, or sharing art in the Discord, or chatting with my friends online or in person about my love for this amazing podcast and these amazing characters and their story. I'm so thankful to Harlan and for all the hard work he puts in to make this story come to life every time.
We rock this shit. That was fantastic.